Imagine you build the most protected place on Earth. You don't hide it behind walls. You bury it inside a mountain, under hundreds of feet of solid rock and reinforced concrete. You tell yourself that no bomb on the planet can reach that deep. And for a long time, you'd be right. You are safe, untouchable. That's exactly what Iran believed about a site called Fordow. Years of tunneling, billions of dollars. A nuclear facility dug so far into a mountain that intelligence agencies around the world quietly agreed on one thing. It simply could not be bombed, not damaged, not reached. It was, by design, beyond the arm of any weapon. And then, one night in June, something came out of the sky that treated that mountain as if it were made of paper. 13 tons of steel that does something no ordinary bomb does. It doesn't explode when it hits. It drills down through the rock, foot after foot, and detonates deep inside, in the one place you were absolutely certain nothing could ever reach. This is the GBU-57, and in a single night, it ended the oldest form of protection there has ever been, hiding underground. Here's what actually happened that night. In the early hours of June 22, 2025, the United States launched a mission it called Operation Midnight Hammer. A formation of B-2 Spirit stealth bombers flew in, aircraft designed to be nearly invisible, having crossed much of the planet to get there. 6 of them lined up on the Fordow nuclear site, the one buried inside the mountain, and released their weapons. 12 of these 30,000-pound bombs, one after another, into the same fortified target. At the same time, a 7th B-2 struck a second nuclear facility at Natanz with 2 more. 14 of the largest conventional bombs the United States has ever built dropped in a single coordinated night onto sites the world had assumed were untouchable. And here's the detail that makes it extraordinary. This was the first time this weapon had ever been used in combat. Ever. Before that night, the MOP had only been dropped on test ranges in the American desert, against mock bunkers built to measure how deep it could go. It had never been used against a real enemy target. Iran was its combat debut. In one raid, a facility that had taken years to build and bury, engineered from the ground up so that it could never be hit, was cracked open in a matter of minutes. The mountain that was supposed to be its armor became its tomb. Which leaves one enormous question hanging in the air, and it's the question this whole video is about. How? How does a bomb reach something buried under 90 meters of solid rock and concrete when every other bomb in history stops dead at the surface? To understand that, you have to understand the monster itself. This is the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, the MOP for short. And every single number about it is built around one obsession: reaching down. Start with the size. It's over 20 feet long, about 6 meters, longer than a car and then some. And it weighs close to 30,000 pounds, 13 tons. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than a fully loaded city bus, built into the shape of a single bomb. It is, by a wide margin, the heaviest bomb in the entire American arsenal. Just moving it around the ground, lifting it, loading it into an aircraft is a careful, specialized operation on its own. Inside, there's about 5,300 pounds of high explosive. And the Air Force has said its blast is more than 10 times as powerful as the older bunker buster it was designed to replace. So your instinct is to picture an enormous fireball. But here's the twist that defines this entire weapon. The explosion is almost the least important part of it, because most of the MOP, by weight, isn't explosive at all. Most of it is casing, a long, dense, impossibly strong steel body. And not just any steel. It's made from a special high-hardness alloy developed by the US military, sometimes called Eglin steel, engineered specifically to slam into solid concrete at tremendous speed and not shatter. Not crumple, not break apart. To stay intact through an impact that would destroy any normal bomb. And that casing is the secret to everything. Because of it, the MOP can punch through up to 200 feet of reinforced concrete, around 60 meters, or roughly 130 feet of solid rock, before it explodes. Sit with that number for a second. 200 feet is taller than a 20-story building. This bomb can drive through that much solid material, straight down, and only then detonate. It's less like a bomb in the way you normally think of one, and more like a hypersonic steel drill with a warhead in its tail.
So how does it actually get down there?
The secret is in what the MOP refuses to do. It does not explode when it hits, and that single choice changes everything. Think about a normal bomb for a moment. It falls, it slams into the surface, and it detonates instantly, right there at the top. All of that energy blasts outward and upward into the open air. It's devastating against a building or a vehicle or troops in the open. But against a mountain? The mountain barely notices. It absorbs the shock, shrugs it off, and the bunker sitting deep below never even feels the impact. That's the whole reason burying things worked for so long. The MOP is engineered to do the exact opposite. Picture a giant nail. All of its weight, 13 tons of it, concentrated behind a narrow, ultra-hardened point and driven downward at enormous speed. It doesn't try to blast the rock away, it punches through it. Its momentum carries it deeper and deeper, layer after layer, and that Eglin steel body holds together the entire way down, protecting the explosive inside like a shell around a yolk. But raw penetration alone isn't enough. If it just buried itself and exploded at a random depth, it might stop short of the target or blow past it. So the MOP has a brain, and this is the part that turns it from a heavy object into a precision weapon. In the tail sits something called the Large Penetrator Smart Fuse. As the bomb tears down through the ground, this fuse is actually sensing what it's passing through. It can feel the difference between dense rock and soft soil, and, crucially, it can detect a void, an empty space, like the hollow chamber of a bunker. It effectively counts the layers as it goes, so it can be programmed to detonate at a precise depth, or it can be set to wait and fire at the exact instant it punches through into the open room it's hunting. That's the whole trick, and it's genuinely elegant. The MOP doesn't try to overpower the mountain with a bigger explosion. It patiently travels through the mountain, keeping count of where it is, and saves its entire fury for one specific place. The sealed room at the very bottom that someone was certain no weapon could ever touch. Let's see it in cross-section, because this is the heart of the entire weapon. On the left side of the picture, a normal bomb hits the top of the mountain. It detonates on impact, a bright flash on the surface, rock and dust thrown into the air. Impressive from a distance. But follow the line down. Deep below, in the bunker, nothing changes. The chamber is untouched. For decades, that picture is exactly why military planners consider deeply buried sites effectively safe. Now the MOP on the right. It strikes the same spot on the same mountain, but it doesn't go off. It drives in. Watch it travel down through the labeled layers. First soil, then solid rock, then a band of reinforced concrete, then more rock beyond it. 60 meters of material straight down. For a sense of scale, picture a 20-story building standing next to that shaft. The bomb travels that entire depth through solid ground still intact. The whole way down, its smart fuse is counting, sensing each layer. And at the precise moment it breaks through into the hollow space of the bunker, the command center, the centrifuge hall, whatever secret is hidden down there, it detonates. All 5,000 pounds of explosive released inside a sealed underground chamber that was never designed to contain a blast from within. Same mountain, same starting point on the surface. One bomb bounces off the top and leaves a scar. The other ignores the top entirely and saves everything for the bottom. That one difference, explode on impact or drill first and explode later, is the entire reason the untouchable suddenly became touchable. There is a serious catch to building a weapon this enormous. Almost nothing on Earth can actually lift it and deliver it. At 13 tons, a single MOP is far too big and far too heavy for any fighter jet, and for nearly every bomber ever built. In fact, only one aircraft in the world can carry it into combat, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. And even the mighty B-2 can only manage 2 of them, one slung in each of its internal weapons bays. That's the ceiling. 2 bombs per aircraft, and only one type of aircraft in existence that can do it. But this isn't only a story about lifting weight, it's about arriving unseen. A target like Fordow isn't sitting out in the open, it's ringed by air defense radars and missile systems, all watching the sky, all waiting to detect and shoot down anything that approaches. Against defenses like that, a normal bomber would be spotted long before it ever got close enough to drop. The B-2 is built specifically to defeat that. Its shape, its materials, its whole design exist to make it almost invisible to radar, to let it slip through a defended border and arrive over the target before anyone realizes it was ever coming. So think about what that combination actually represents. You have an aircraft engineered so the enemy never sees it arrive, and it's carrying a bomb engineered so the enemy can't hide from it no matter how deep they dig. The invisible plane delivering the unstoppable bomb. Put those 2 things together and you understand why Fordow was cracked open with no warning at all. The very first sign anything was wrong was the mountain itself beginning to break apart from the inside. It's worth remembering that this ties directly back to the B-2 itself, a machine that spent decades being the quiet key to American reach. The MOP is, in a sense, the weapon the B-2 was always waiting for. So where did a weapon like this even come from? To understand that, you have to understand a slow-motion arms race that had been building for decades. For most of the 20th century, the logic of protection was simple. If bombs are getting more powerful, dig deeper and pour thicker concrete. And it worked. By the early 2000s, nations that wanted to hide their most dangerous programs, nuclear work, command centers, weapons stockpiles, had learned to bury them so deep that America's existing bunker busters simply couldn't reach. The defenders were, quite literally, winning by going underground. After the 2003 war in Iraq, American analysts confronted that problem head-on. They looked at the deepest, most hardened targets around the world and realized their current weapons fell short. There were places they simply could not touch. And in an age of hidden nuclear programs, that was considered an unacceptable gap. So a requirement was written for something far heavier, far stronger, and far smarter than anything before it. A bomb that could reach almost anything, no matter how deep it was buried. Development began around 2004, and while the military never has to say out loud which specific target a weapon is meant for, one kind of sight fit the MOP's purpose more perfectly than any other. Exactly the sort of deep, mountain-shielded nuclear facility that Iran spent years constructing at Fordow. In other words, this bomb and that mountain were, in a sense, built for each other. A lock and a key, developed on opposite sides of the world, waiting for the night they'd finally meet. So step back from the mountain, from the raid, from the machine itself, and ask the bigger question. What does the MOP actually change? And the answer is bigger than any single strike. For as long as humans have fought wars, one rule has held almost without exception. If you want to protect something precious, put it underground and pile enough earth on top. Deep enough was safe enough. That single assumption shaped how civilizations built fortresses, how nations hid their leaders, and in the modern age, how countries concealed their most dangerous weapons and secrets. Depth was the ultimate shield. It was the one defense that always worked. The MOP breaks that assumption, not partially, fundamentally. Because now, anyone who buries something critical has to live with a new and uncomfortable fact. There exists a bomb that can reach it, and only one country needs to fly a single aircraft to deliver it. That completely rewrites the calculation. If deep underground is no longer safe, then what is? Do you keep burying things knowing they can now be found and destroyed? Do you spread them out, hide them differently, move them constantly? Every one of those options is harder, costlier, and more exposed than simply digging a deep hole used to be. And the United States has made its intentions very clear. In 2024, it announced plans to at least triple production of these bombs. That's not a subtle signal. It's a deliberate statement. The era when deep underground meant untouchable is over, and it is not coming back. For every nation that has ever relied on a mountain to keep a secret safe, that is a genuinely unsettling new reality to wake up to. Now let me be honest with you, because the loudest versions of this story usually aren't. The MOP is extraordinary, but it is not magic, and it doesn't make everything underground vanish at the push of a button. There are real limits. 60 meters is deep, astonishingly deep, but it is still a number. A facility dug even deeper than that, or protected by clever layered defenses designed to absorb an impact, can push the very edge of what even the MOP can do. Some targets may need to be hit more than once, in the exact same spot, to finish the job, which is part of why Fordow was struck with so many bombs, not just one. And there's the question that always follows a strike like this. How much was actually destroyed down there? From the surface, and even from satellites, it can be genuinely hard to know exactly what happened inside a sealed mountain. That uncertainty is real, and honest analysts acknowledge it rather than declaring total victory. So the accurate picture isn't "nothing can ever hide again." It's something more measured, and in a way more interesting. The safest hiding place humanity ever invented, deep underground, is no longer a guarantee. The defender can still make it hard, but they can no longer make it impossible. And that shift from impossible to reach to merely hard to reach is one of the quiet turning points in modern warfare. So, what is the truly frightening thing about a 13-ton bomb? It isn't the size of the explosion. Plenty of weapons make a bigger fireball. It isn't even the sheer weight, staggering as it is. The frightening thing is the patience. The MOP was built to do the one thing that used to be flatly impossible: to wait. To travel down, calmly and deliberately, through everything you stacked in its way. 60 meters of rock and concrete and steel. And to hold its entire violence in reserve until it reaches the single place you were most certain was safe. For thousands of years, protection has meant the same handful of things. Hide behind a thicker wall, dig a deeper hole, put a mountain over your head and trust that no one can move it. The MOP is the weapon that quietly ended that idea, not with the loudest bang in history, but by reaching the one place a bang was never supposed to reach. That's what really happened over Iran that night. It wasn't just a strike on a building. It was a demonstration of something larger and colder and harder to forget. That the deepest, most protected place you can possibly build is no longer beyond reach. The mountain is no longer a shield. It's just the last thing the bomb has to pass through. Because in the end, the things we bury deepest are the things we're most afraid to lose. And that is precisely what this bomb was built to